YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with some more cap space solutions for NFL teams. I'm going through each team. We're going division by division for each video. This one for the NFC North, but I'm making cuts showing what players really can't be cut if they have any that are kind of people are bringing up, and then how to kind of improve the cap space situations for those teams. This is the fourth video. We're going to get through every single team division by division for each video, of course, like I said. To get more involved with us and get more NFL news, follow that Twitter. Please subscribe, though. Full NFL coverage here, Super Bowl preview, predictions, everything. And then we have offseason coverage already starting with free agency and the NFL draft. And then we do grade every single free agency signing, too. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited about free agency already. So hopefully you can join us for all that. Link in the description and comments for anything that you need. There's our Twitter. You guys are voting on what videos, what divisions I do tomorrow. Looks like the South is leading the way, but so apologize to the West fans, AFC and NFC, but we'll get to you Saturday. Should be the day for those. So we're getting all of them, really. This website that I'm using is pretty cool site. Makes things easier. They kind of have the cap space situation figured out for now. That could change, but Spotrac link I'll put in the comments. NFC North, we're starting with the Chicago Bears, so negative's never good, but negative $10.5 million. That's kind of the worst case scenario, too, because this is kind of going off the projected $175 million cap space for each team, which that's a big drop to what it normally is because of the COVID situation, the lack of ticket sales. But that number actually could be a little higher, so maybe we're looking at around a -5 to start. So this is -10. It's kind of worst case. It just kind of gives you a ballpark idea what to expect. Now we go down to the cap hits, the roster with the cap hits here. Khalil Mack, a giant cap hit, of course, but there's really no moving him, obviously. Robert Quinn, this is just to show people. Robert Quinn was pretty disappointing his first year, got a big contract. What happens if they cut him? Negative $9.2 million. So not that they want to do that because they want to, they still like him. They want to, get him going in that defense. But people kind of disappointed with him. Maybe if somebody brings up they should cut Robert Quinn. Now you see, you can't. Obviously, they don't want to move on from Hicks. Leno started to pick it up a little bit for them. It's hard to come across experienced left tackles, but yeah, I think Bears fans have gotten on their offensive linemen, most of them at least, so maybe some people could see this, but that's $6 million saved. I just don't think they do it. Again, he played decent last year. He was the year they were in the playoffs, or last year they were in the playoffs as well. A couple years ago when they were in the playoffs, I think he had a really good year that season. So I think they keep him. Jimmy Graham's an interesting one. He's 35 years old. The way they, the way they laid out that contract was to probably, have a chance to get out of it after year one because there's really no guarantee in how he would be. He was actually a lot better than expected. He was pretty damn good for them, especially in the red zone, and that's kind of what, mediocre quarterback play at the same time. But if you do cut him, $7 million is quite a bit. That's why it's good, but it's good and bad at the same time because the way they set up that contract was kind of good at the time because you get rid of him after that first year if he's underwhelming, save $7 million. They draft Cole Kmet, who kind of can take over for him. So that looks pretty good. But now they're in the position where they might want to keep him, but they kind of have it sitting there where they can save $7 million. So that's kind of tough. I do like Cole Kmet. So maybe they do this. Maybe they like white hair. Massey, they could actually move on from. He's kind of had the injuries come up here and there the last few years, but Fetty is their right tackle. Other right tackle is a free agent, but they could save $6.7 million here, so that's definitely a possibility. Don't forget about Eddie Goldman. He opted out. Pretty good nose tackle for them. He's coming back this year, so excited about that. Nick Foles, a big name. Fans probably aren't happy about that deal at this point. Can they cut him? Somebody might just say, let's cut Nick Foles. We're done with him. Negative $7.6 million, so that contract wasn't ideal there. So looks like there's no cutting Nick Foles there. Going to be tough to trade him. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. Could Shelley take over for Skrine? That's definitely a possibility, so they can move on from him. $2.7 million. That's a possibility as well. Daniel Trevathan, they just signed last offseason. I mean, I like him. He's a good inside linebacker. Roquan Smith, obviously the better one. But, could they save money here just to see? No, it's another negative $8 million. And then Tree Cohen, they missed him last year for the most part there, so they're good to have him back to just sign. Just usually guys that just signed a contract will typically have negative. I think they missed him, so they'll definitely like him back. Kind of getting down here, you already see, you're seeing younger guys here. Anthony Miller, people aren't happy with him. They could cut him and save $1.2 million. They can make some of these minor cuts and say all these teams will. Ridley's been pretty disappointing, but he's 25 years old. They probably won't move on from him. Javon Wims, been a decent rotation guy. People aren't happy with him dropping a touchdown pass is worth saving $920,000. When you're negative, you might, but as you can tell, we actually kind of fixed the Bears situation a little bit. And this is if they make every single one of these cuts, this is kind of worst case scenario number of $8 million. So that's looking pretty solid, actually. So team coming from negative. But again, I'm not saying they'll make every single one of these cuts. Just kind of give you an idea who they can and can't cut there. If we want to see where's Nick Foles, if they somehow manage to trade him, how would that look? Save $1.3 million. All right, you take a late round pick and do that, if it's possible. Deshaun Watson trades come up quite a bit with the Bears. Some people have brought up, what if you have to trade Khalil Mack? With that, you'll save million there, 5.246 million. So just to kind of get an idea there. So Bears not sitting pretty, but they can get okay. They can get in an okay spot. The Detroit Lions. So Matthew Stafford's like almost guarantees to be traded. So let's get him out of here. That saves $14 million. There's some dead cap there, but overall they save $14 million. Dead cap means you can't really. It's preventing you from saving all of the cap hit. So that's the best way to explain it. Some people think dead cap. That means they're losing money sometimes, but in this case, they save $14 million. They just won't be able to save all of his cap hit because of dead cap. Trey Flowers has been pretty disappointing. I think he's had some injuries here and there, but been pretty disappointing. A team that's rebuilding. He's only 28, but a team that's clearly rebuilding. They could cut him, right? No, negative $11 million. Not that they would really want to do that, maybe anyways. Desmond Trufant, they could move on. He was okay when he played for them. Might have been their best corner at times. Amani Aruarie was at times as well. He played very well early in the year. Had some bad moments later in the year, but young talent. So my point is Aruarie and Okudah could be the cornerback duo. So Trufant, they could cut, and they could save $6 million. So we're getting to a pretty good number at this point here. So trading Stafford's the starting point. Justin Coleman, they like in the slot, but I just want to see here. I think they probably keep him. $5 million, they probably keep him. Jesse James, him and Hawkins and him as a tight end too is pretty solid, but nothing guaranteed. They can get a $2 million. Is that worth it though? I said they probably keep him too. It's a new staff though, so you can't really say for sure. Nick Williams, another guy they $4 million. $1 million dead cap. I was gonna say you got another guy they probably hang on to, but again, new staff could save that $4 million there. Chase Daniel could be done for. 35 years old, $2.3 million. So Danny Shelton. We go for a younger nose tackle. He could fit this new scheme, though, I think, but could save $4 million. So they have quite a few opportunities. There's some linebackers that have been pretty disappointing, pretty much all of them. Christian Jones, 2.5, probably not worth it there. Tyvay's still young. Tracy Walker's pretty solid, young talent. A lot of these guys, that applies. What I just said kind of applies to all these guys. So, again, some of these guys down here would probably be cut, save $900K or so. Probably a bunch of those guys for each team. But as you can see, and again, if every single one of these guys are cut, Matthew Stafford trade, this is kind of the, if this exactly happens, I'll say, the number would probably be more than this. It would probably be more than $34 million. So that applies to every team. So that's looking pretty good. They don't really need to go ridiculous spending in free agency because it is kind of a rebuild team. If they do, go for the younger guys. Younger guys are guys that you're confident about the future as well. So the Lions could be an ideal situation. Packers, who are one of the best teams in football this year, not in that great of a situation. This number actually ends up being lower, more in the negative than I thought it would be. Again, this website I usually trust. They're pretty damn accurate. But this is kind of worst case scenario, but it's a pretty bad scenario. So as you can see, if you know their free agency, they got Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, Corey Linsley, their center, Robert Tonyan. They got some pretty big free agents. So, and with this cap space, it kind of looked like this last year was a Super Bowl or big time Super Bowl or bust year, and they were pretty damn close. So that's tough. That's brutal, really. Negative $39 million is not looking good, but can they? And there's been that talk about Aaron Rodgers. If you follow me on Twitter, I think it's just BS. I think he's staying put. Of course, they're not going to cut. There's some people that for some reason think Aaron Rodgers has control. He can force them to cut him, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But just to show you, cutting him could actually save $6 million, so at least it's not negative. But it's never would happen. At the end, we'll trade him because I don't want to reset it and wait for the low. We'll trade him at the end just to see what happens. It's Darius Smith, big time player. Bakhtiari, they missed him in the playoffs. Preston Smith, there's some talk about Preston Smith because he's pretty underwhelming this year. I think he relies on other guys creating for him, but he's still a good football player at the end of the day. So they don't necessarily have to cut him. But I mean, look where their cap space is. $8 million. So you improve it by $8 million. That's pretty good. I still don't think it's a guy they cut. I actually put him in the trade candidate recently. Had a bunch of big name trade candidates. I actually put him in there. So if you trade him, you save the same amount of money as well. Let's just go ahead and do it. Let's just trade him. It doesn't matter where. $8 million. So you save that. So that could be ideal. Christian Kirksey. I think it's a possibility. I think he helped improve their linebacker unit. They were a little better stopping the run. Still an issue. Tackling sometimes still an issue. But they got a couple young inside linebackers. Either way, whether it's Kirksey, Barnes, I think they'll like Barnes for the long haul. They got Kamal Martin as well. Either way, though, I think they can get better, even over Kirksey. So save that $5.6 million, I'd say. Dean Lowry plays quite a bit for them. Only saving $3 million. Is it something they want to do? Is it something it's tough. Ricky Wagner filled in for them quite a bit, but could move on from him for $4.2 million. Looking down the list, that's another reason why Preston Smith, you could trade him or move on from him because Rashawn Gary's starting to step up. I forgot about Devin Funchess. They had Devin Funchess. He opted out. Let's see if they just decide. That'd be kind of weird. It's basically like just signing him and deciding they don't want him, but that would save 1 point. I think they kind of roll with him. Josh Jackson really hasn't fit them. He needs a team that runs a lot more zone, I think. So they could save $1.3 million. Looking down, these guys are pretty. Oren Burks hasn't really worked out. Now you're not saving too much money there. They're going to cut random guys like this. $990,000. They're going to cut some guys here and there like this. They got some guys that are key for them that are pretty cheap. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Kingsley Kiki's a guy up and coming here. Ty Summers plays for him a little bit. Not that he's anything special for them, but we're still sitting in the negative, so that's not ideal. So basically, look out for the Packers not to be able to do too much, especially with new signings this offseason. So that's pretty tough for them. Looks like A.J. Dillon could be the guy of the future. Let's just say they traded Aaron Rodgers. Don't think it happens. Still that same number, $6 million, so they're still negative. I just don't think that happens. So, you could trade the guy that's your biggest cap hit and you're still in the negative. So it's pretty rough there. The Vikings are also in a rough situation, negative $18 million again for every team. This is kind of worst case scenario. I think it could be a little better than that. Kirk Cousins is always the center of talk around these types of things. What happens if you cut Kirk Cousins? Negative $10 million. I've seen a lot of people out there say they'll just cut him and they'll trade for somebody, get him. It's just ridiculous. Kirk played actually pretty well, especially down the stretch of the last season, but is he the future quarterback? That's kind of the question. But cutting him's kind of ridiculous because he's definitely a solid quarterback, but mainly because the cap space there. Riley Reif actually played okay last year, better than expected, but 33 years old. They restructured his contract to push more back this year. I think they expected to cut him after this year. 13 point. That's a lot of money. A lot of money they can save there. But then they kind of need a left tackle. There's talk about Ezra Cleveland. Could he move the left tackle? They moved him to guard. He looked pretty good there. I prefer keeping him at guard. So they're going to need a left tackle if they do this. It's kind of a tough thing. They moved the money back to clear last year, and that's great because you were kind of thinking he's probably going to only last one more year in the Vikings as well. So it works. All this money is going to be free, that they push back here. But he ended up playing decent, So do they want to keep him now? And they're going to have to approach him about a pay cut and a restructure again. He didn't want to do it last time. He kind of went around looking for a trade, but nobody wanted to trade for him, so he kind of had to do it here. So it's going to be weird if they have to ask him again, but that's pretty tough. There's some talk about Anthony Barr. people want the Vikings just to, because he missed last year. He played, a little bit, but people want them to re-sign Eric Wilson because it'll be cheaper and then play Eric Wilson alongside Eric Kendricks. The Vikings play a lot of, they play nickel a lot. They'll play with two linebackers a ton, so they could do that. But cutting Anthony Barr just sounds ridiculous. I mean, you would save $7.2 million. I think it's a trade candidate because I don't know how you can cut that guy. We can circle back to that. Looking down the list, these aren't guys. Kyle Rudolph's a big one. He said he wouldn't take a pay cut already. I think they'll move on from him. Irv Smith and Conklin, two young tight ends, really started to pick it up this last year. How are they with blocking, though? That's kind of the question. Could they improve? They probably could improve in terms of blocking tight end. Those guys, for athletic tight end, they're actually better than you would think in terms of blocking. But Kyle Rudolph, longtime Viking, could be sad to see him go, but I think it's likely to happen. $5.1 million savings, so that's something there. Shamar Stephen's been pretty underwhelming. What could they say from him? They kind of got to revamp they get Michael Pierce back. He'll play nose. They kind of want to get a guy that can play three technique a little better there. So save the $3.75 million. I think it's very possible. Bailey, they probably already would have moved on from him if they wanted to, but he had a rough year. $1.7 million, but then they got to find a kicker. I think most likely he's still there unless he retires. Mike Hughes is only 24, but man, he looked good his rookie year. Then he got injured, and then he just has not looked good or gotten injured again since then. You can save 1.1. Is it worth it? Probably not worth it. But he's been pretty disappointing. And now we're getting into the cheaper guys. Jalen Holmes, he's only 25. They kind of ruined him themselves because he was a pretty good pass rusher from Ohio State, and they turned him into a D tackle, put all kinds of weight on him, and it didn't work out. And they moved him back to a pass rusher, and he's not the same as what he was. So they kind of blew that one. Save $920,000. They may want to continue to work back to the edge rusher position. They already gave Samaya a test run, and that was a disaster. But that's not a lot of money there. Yeah, these guys are pretty cheap. So kind of going back to the top, at least we got into the positive. So similar to the Bears situation, at least we got to the positive. Let's go back. What happens if they trade? First, what happens if they trade Anthony Barr, which is actually a possibility. I don't see them cutting him, but they could get something in return. You got to get something. Somebody would like an Anthony Barr. He's a really good player. I think people were starting to say Eric Wilson's better than Anthony Barr. Eric Wilson's pretty impressive. I just don't see how you could say that, though. And, I mean, can Barr stay healthy? That's kind of the question. But trading him would save that same amount of money. Remember, cutting Kirk Cousins it's ridiculous. Would create a -10 outcome there. What happens if you trade him? You save $11 million. So there's been, can they involve Kirk Cousins in a trade? I wish, we want to reset this now. So we're going to circle back in a second. But trading him could save $11 million. Some people kind of brought that up, if they can potentially make a deal. Very few people have really said that, I guess. But some people are dreaming with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, anything like that. I've seen ESPN had a trade scenario where 3-team deal, Cousins goes to the Patriots. Somehow the Vikings have a Watson. It's just not going to happen. But as you can see, if they did somehow, they would free up $11 million. Now sometimes it takes forever to reload here, but there we go. Kirk Cousins, let's pull up his contract, and yeah, that's great. So 2021, $31 million, 41 dead cap, and that's how the Vikings get -10 if they cut him, because you clear this, but then you have this. So, that's where you get that 10. -10, I should say. But then look at 2022, $45 million cap hit. I think when they made that contract, they were thinking this could be a good and a bad thing. I think they were thinking they weren't going to have him in 2022. $45 million, but there's a chance. $45 million is an insane amount of money. It's like Deshaun Watson money in those years. But dead cap is $10 million. So if you cut him before 2022, there's $35 million you save. You clear $35 million. It's a lot. $35 million is enough for one team there. So it's a lot of money for the Vikings there. Then they need a quarterback. But kind of going back to the point of trading him, it's not. Yeah, again, it could be a good and a bad thing because the team's really not stuck with him. That's the good thing. Teams aren't really stuck with him. But if they do want him, they're paying him a lot of money. Now they could restructure again if they want to keep him for 2022. Then that means he's probably playing well, and then they can take some of this money and shift it back, whether it's an extension or if it's creating dummy years. They can easily do that. Push some of that money back out of the 35. Yeah, that $35 million yearly cash. It almost makes up all of that. So. Yeah, so nobody's really stuck with him. That's the kind of the point I wanted to prove. So trading for him isn't, some people labeled it kind of bad. It really depends on the situation, but yeah, it's something. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it's just to kind of get an idea for it. And that's what we do with all these videos. The kind of ballpark cap numbers. We're still awaiting the official number for the cap number for each team, which it's the same for each team, but and then it'll kind of tell us how much cap space is available for each team, which is different, obviously, as you could tell. But yeah, we're going through every team, every division. Each division has its own video, and we're getting through it. So we still got the AFC and NFC West and South. South will be tomorrow, most likely, based on that poll on our Twitter. But, yeah, we're going to keep going through these. We got a bunch of off-season free agency NFL draft videos on the channel. Plenty more to come. We got more content than anybody out there for the NFL. Make sure you follow Twitter. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe. Turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.